There is something many men grow up never being taught, and it is not because women are trying to be mysterious or manipulative. It is because human connection rarely unfolds in bold, obvious declarations. When a woman begins to feel a desire for deeper closeness, she usually does not announce it directly. She does not walk up and state her intentions in plain language. Instead, her interest tends to show up in patterns of behavior that are quiet, layered, and deeply human. Research in nonverbal communication has consistently shown that a large percentage of attraction signals are missed in real time. Studies published in the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior suggest that men frequently underestimate or fail to recognize subtle cues of romantic interest. This does not mean men are careless. It simply highlights how complex and nuanced human signaling can be. Attraction is rarely a flashing neon sign. More often, it is a series of small green lights that only make sense when you know what to look for. Before we go further, it is important to set a healthy foundation. There is a meaningful difference between friendliness and intimate interest. Kindness, laughter, eye contact, and basic warmth are parts of normal social interaction. Intimacy, however, carries a different emotional texture. When someone shifts from general friendliness into deeper interest, their behavior often becomes more intentional, more focused, and more personal. The energy changes, the attention narrows. Psychological research on courtship behavior has identified dozens of subtle signals people use when they feel drawn toward someone. Many of these behaviors are so understated that an outside observer would never notice them. But once you understand the patterns, they become easier to recognize. And when you recognize them, you respond with more confidence, more clarity, and more respect. The first pattern often appears through touch, but not in an obvious way. When a woman begins to feel emotionally or romantically drawn to someone, she may introduce light, seemingly casual physical contact. A brief touch on the forearm while laughing, adjusting your collar, or brushing something imaginary off your shoulder. Letting her knee rest lightly against yours without immediately moving away. On the surface, these gestures look accidental. In reality, they are often small tests of comfort and connection. From a physiological perspective, appropriate and welcome physical touch can trigger the release of oxytocin, sometimes referred to as the bonding hormone. Oxytocin plays a role in creating feelings of trust, safety, and closeness. Most people do not consciously think about hormones when they reach out and touch someone they like. But the body understands what the mind has not yet verbalized. The nervous system is constantly scanning for cues of safety and attraction. This is where awareness becomes important. If she initiates light, respectful contact, and you freeze or completely ignore it, she may interpret that as discomfort or rejection. That does not mean you must escalate or overreact. Healthy connection is about reciprocity, not pressure. A simple, natural response that matches her energy can communicate openness. The key is attunement. Notice the moment, stay present, respond in a way that feels authentic and respectful to both of you. The second pattern is less physical and far more emotional. When a woman begins sharing personal stories that she does not typically tell everyone, that is significant. Vulnerability is not random, it is selective. Psychologist Arthur Aaron's well-known research on structured personal questions demonstrated how emotional disclosure can rapidly increase feelings of closeness between strangers. When people share meaningful experiences, fears, childhood memories, or personal dreams, emotional intimacy accelerates. So if she begins talking about a difficult experience from her past, a fear about her future, or a sensitive family dynamic, she is not simply filling silence. She is offering you access to parts of herself that she protects. Emotional openness requires trust, and trust, in its early stages, is fragile. How you respond in those moments matters deeply. The healthiest response is not to immediately problem solve or shift the topic back to yourself. It is to listen, reflect, validate. A calm, "that sounds really hard," or "thank you for telling me that," can create more connection than any grand gesture. Emotional safety is one of the strongest foundations for intimacy. When someone feels heard without judgment, closeness grows naturally. The third pattern often shows up in logistics, When a woman is interested in deepening connection, she may begin creating opportunities for one-on-one interaction. She might suggest grabbing coffee after a group event. She may linger after others leave, so the two of you end up walking together. She may send a late-night message about something that could have waited until morning. Research from the University of Kansas has explored how time spent together influences closeness. Moving from acquaintance to friendship and then to deeper connection requires shared hours and shared experiences. When someone intentionally creates opportunities for undivided attention, they are often attempting to accelerate that bonding process. It may look spontaneous, but repeated patterns of coincidental alone time are rarely pure coincidence. It is important to approach this insight with balance. Not every invitation means romantic interest. Context always matters. However, when these private moments occur consistently and are paired with other signs of focused attention, they may reflect a desire for deeper connection. As we continue exploring these patterns, remember something essential. No single behavior proves anything in isolation. Human beings are complex. Personalities differ. Cultural norms differ. What matters most is consistency over time. When multiple signals begin appearing together, they form a clearer picture. Healthy awareness is not about overanalyzing every smile or gesture. It is about becoming more emotionally intelligent. When you learn to notice patterns, you become more responsive and less reactive. You stop guessing blindly and start engaging thoughtfully. And perhaps most importantly, you begin approaching connection not as a game to win, but as a shared experience to nurture. Intimacy is not built through pressure. It is built through attentiveness, respect, and mutual willingness. In the next part, we will explore additional patterns that are even more subtle, yet often even more revealing. As connection deepens, the signals often become less about isolated gestures and more about synchronization. One of the most fascinating dynamics in human attraction is mirroring. When two people feel drawn to each other, their nervous systems begin to align in subtle ways. This is not imitation in a mocking sense. It is a natural, largely unconscious process where one person's posture, tone, rhythm, or expressions begin to reflect the other's. You might notice that when you lean forward, she leans forward too. When you slow your speech, her pace softens. If you take a sip of your drink, she reaches for hers moments later. These tiny echoes are rarely deliberate. Studies in social neuroscience have described this as behavioral synchrony, where two brains begin operating in harmony. Research published in PLOS One has linked mirroring with higher levels of rapport and perceived connection. In simple terms, when our bodies move together, our emotions often follow. The beautiful part about mirroring is that it signals comfort. Our brains are wired to synchronize with people we feel safe around. If she is subconsciously aligning her movements and speech with yours, it may reflect that her system recognizes you as someone worth connecting with. And this dynamic works both ways. When you gently mirror her posture or tone without exaggeration, you reinforce that sense of harmony. It is not about manipulation, it is about mutual regulation, two people gradually finding the same rhythm. Another powerful shift happens in language. Listen carefully to how she talks about the future. When someone is only casually interacting, conversations tend to stay anchored in the present. Today, this week, maybe the weekend. But when a woman begins to imagine closeness, her language may subtly include you in what comes next. She might say, "We should try that new restaurant sometime," instead of, "I want to try that restaurant." She might mention a concert next month and add, "You'd love that." Or talk about traveling somewhere and frame it in terms of sharing the experience rather than going alone. These statements seem casual, but psychologically they matter. Relationship researcher Dr. John Gottman has spent decades studying early communication patterns in couples. One finding that stands out is the importance of what he calls bids for connection. These are small invitations that test emotional responsiveness. Inclusive language can function as a bid. It gently explores whether the other person sees a shared future as plausible. When she includes you in future scenarios, she's not demanding commitment. She is testing alignment. Your response signals whether you are on the same page. If you respond warmly and engage the idea, the sense of shared possibility strengthens. If you dismiss or ignore it, the invitation may quietly close. Then there is voice. This may be one of the most overlooked yet scientifically fascinating signals of attraction. Studies from the University of Stirling in Scotland have shown that women often unconsciously adjust their vocal pitch when speaking to someone they find attractive. The tone may become slightly softer, warmer, or lower. The pace might slow. There can be a gentler rhythm that was not present moments earlier. This is not theatrical performance, it is physiological. Attraction can activate subtle hormonal and neurological shifts that influence muscle tension, breathing, and vocal tone. The voice carries emotional information beyond words. Humans evolved to detect these changes long before we developed complex language. A softer tone can signal comfort and interest. A slightly breathier cadence can suggest emotional openness. You may even notice that her energy shifts when she turns from talking to a group and directs her attention to you. The volume lowers, the focus sharpens. It feels more intimate, even if the setting has not changed. These vocal cues are difficult to fake consistently because they are rooted in automatic responses of the nervous system. It is important, however, to approach this awareness with care. Attraction signals are not guarantees. They are indicators of potential interest, not obligations. Healthy connection requires mutual enthusiasm and explicit consent as things progress. Subtle cues may open the door, but clear communication keeps the path safe. There is also something deeply human happening beneath all these patterns. When a woman feels emotionally safe and intrigued, her body and language begin aligning toward closeness. Safety and attraction often intertwine. The nervous system relaxes, guarded edges soften. Curiosity grows. You might notice that she maintains eye contact a little longer, that she seems fully present rather than scanning the room, that her laughter feels more genuine and less performative. Attention becomes focused. Distractions fade into the background. These are not dramatic gestures. They are quiet recalibrations of priority. As you observe these signals, remember that your role is not to decode and conquer. It is to notice and respond with emotional intelligence. If you sense warmth, offer warmth back. If she shares vulnerability, meet it with steadiness. If she creates space for connection, step into it respectfully. Many missed opportunities do not happen because interest was absent. They happen because awareness was. When signals are subtle, they require presence. And presence is a skill. It means putting the phone away, listening without rehearsing your next line, feeling the tone of the moment instead of rushing it. When multiple signs begin clustering together, touch, vulnerability, one-on-one time, mirroring, inclusive language, vocal shifts, they form a pattern, and patterns are far more reliable than isolated events. In the final part, we will bring everything together and talk about how to respond in a way that nurtures connection while staying grounded, respectful, and emotionally mature. Now that you understand these patterns, the most important question is not how to spot them, but how to respond to them in a way that builds something healthy. Awareness without emotional maturity can quickly turn into overconfidence or misinterpretation. The goal is not to assume intimacy. The goal is to recognize possibility and move forward with clarity and care. When several of these signals appear consistently, what you are likely witnessing is not random friendliness. You are witnessing investment. Investment of attention, emotional energy, time, and nervous system regulation. An investment deserves respect. One of the biggest mistakes people make after learning about attraction cues is rushing the process. They think that once the signs are visible, the outcome is guaranteed. But human connection is not a switch you flip. It is a gradual unfolding. Subtle signals are invitations, not contracts. They are openings for dialogue, not silent agreements. If she engineers light touch and you sense comfort, you can gently reciprocate, but always in a way that allows space for her to lean in or step back freely. If she shares vulnerable stories, continue creating emotional safety by being consistent and reliable. Consistency builds trust faster than charm ever will. If she creates opportunities to be alone with you, show up fully. Give her your undivided attention. Presence communicates value more than grand gestures. If you notice mirroring, inclusive language, and vocal warmth, do not treat them as trophies. Treat them as signs that emotional alignment may be forming. And alignment thrives on honesty. At the right moment, clear communication becomes essential. Something as simple as, "I really enjoy spending time with you," can shift the dynamic from silent guessing to mutual understanding. Clarity reduces anxiety. It allows both people to move forward without fear of misreading each other. It is also crucial to remember that attraction is dynamic. Feelings can grow, plateau, or fade. Signals can intensify or soften. This is normal. Emotional health means staying grounded regardless of outcome. If her behavior changes, do not panic or chase. Instead, observe. Ask yourself whether communication has shifted. Sometimes life stress, emotional overload, or personal struggles can alter behavior temporarily. Approach changes with curiosity, not accusation. Healthy intimacy is built on three pillars: safety, reciprocity, and respect. Safety means both people feel free to express themselves without fear. Reciprocity means energy flows in both directions. Respect means boundaries are honored every step of the way. No amount of subtle signaling replaces the importance of consent and mutual enthusiasm. There is something empowering about understanding these patterns. You stop walking through interactions blindly. You become more emotionally literate. But the deeper transformation happens when you shift from trying to win someone to trying to truly understand them. Intimacy is not about decoding secrets. It is about attunement. It is about recognizing when two nervous systems are gradually relaxing into each other's presence. Think about the broader picture. When someone touches you gently, shares personal truths, seeks private time, mirrors your movements, includes you in their future language, and unconsciously softens their voice around you. What they are really communicating is comfort and curiosity. They are saying, in a language older than words, "I feel something here. Do you feel it too?" And that question deserves a thoughtful answer. If you respond with awareness, patience, and authenticity, connection has room to grow naturally. If you respond with pressure, assumption, or entitlement, it closes just as quickly as it opened. Emotional intelligence is not about being hyper-analytical. It is about being tuned in without being intrusive. Most missed opportunities in relationships do not happen because attraction was absent. They happen because one or both people were disconnected from the present moment. They were distracted, uncertain, or too guarded to respond. When you cultivate presence, you dramatically reduce those missed chances. As you move forward, keep this in mind. No single gesture means everything, but repeated patterns mean something. Warmth that shows up again and again is rarely accidental. And when you meet that warmth with steadiness and kindness, you create the conditions where intimacy can unfold in a healthy, grounded way. Understanding these signals does not make you manipulative. It makes you aware. And awareness, when paired with empathy, becomes one of the most powerful tools for building meaningful relationships. Connection is not about grand declarations. It is built in quiet moments, a lingering glance, a shared laugh, a softened voice, a conversation that goes deeper than expected. When you learn to notice those moments and respond with sincerity, you stop wondering whether you missed your chance. You become someone who sees clearly, listens deeply, and shows up fully. And that is where real intimacy begins.